Good morning and welcome to our Spirit of Nebraska Facebook Live-ish session. In order to show you some of the features of Zoom, I actually had to pre-record this and we are featuring it on the Facebook Live. And we will tell you a little bit later about an opportunity to actually collaborate using Zoom so that you have a chance to play with the features and things like that. I'm hosting today's session. My name's Jen Quaranta. I am a co-leader for a Brownie troop and a cadet troop in Lincoln, Nebraska. I have been a Girl Scout since Daisies. I was one of the very first years they ever had Daisies, and I stayed in it through high school despite moving many, many times because I was a military brat. I was a Girl Scout in 5 different councils, including Girl Scouts overseas in the Azore Islands. And I've been a registered adult co-leader in 2 different councils as well that I was not a part of as a kid. And I absolutely love Girl Scouts, and I'm glad that I can share this opportunity with you about how to host meetings with your girls, even though you guys can't get together right now. So I actually started using Zoom for meetings a little over a year ago when we had a terrible snowstorm that we had to cancel our troop meeting, but it was like the last opportunity for us to collaborate before cookie sales. And so I have used it with girls before, and then helped to write an article that was featured in the Troop Tips for Leaders from the national council that gets sent out. So I'm happy to help you guys learn a little bit more about Zoom today. And like I said, we can practice it at a later time as well. So the first thing I want to say is thank you to all of you, not just for coming, but for volunteering and for keeping our girls active during this time. I want to thank you, even if you have not done a virtual meeting yet, because it takes a lot for us to shift from what we're used to doing in person to being able to be comfortable to do it online. And so there are some troops who have already had several meetings virtually, and there are some troops who aren't even sure that they want to do that format. And we're all, learning at our own pace, and we're all dealing with the events differently. And so it doesn't make it right that one troop is off and running and another troop hasn't started yet. We're just all in different places. If you're a parent who's joining us today and you're trying to figure out more about how can we do virtual options with my daughter's troop, I want to encourage you to reach out and see what you can do to help your leader with getting these things started. It can be very, very overwhelming. And so just remember that we are in it to support the girls. In today's session, we're going to talk a little bit about how to create a Zoom account, just assuming that you don't have one. I'm going to talk you through some of the features to make sure that your meeting is secure. Once you have secured your meeting, I want to walk you through how to set up a meeting in Zoom so that you can get that scheduled and some tips for that. And then I want you to think about some settings that you might use during your meeting to help you stay in control of the meeting. And then, like I said, we'll talk about that opportunity to practice Zoom together. So the first thing I do get asked about is why I chose Zoom as my platform for meeting with the girls. In all honesty, it's because it's the thing I'm most familiar with. But I've also had an opportunity to use things like Skype. In Skype, you have to have an account. Both users need to have an account and things like that. I'm not familiar with Facebook Live, and I guess there is a feature for like a Facebook Hangout, but most of the girls that we're supporting aren't old enough to have a Facebook account. And I'm not as familiar with Google Hangouts, but I do know that several troops around the country have been using things like Google Hangout for their girls. So I chose Zoom, like I said, because it was something that I was already familiar with through work. One thing that I really like about Zoom is that myself as the leader needed to have an account, but my girls and their families did not need to have it. When you learn about setting up your meeting, you will get a URL link that will take you to the meeting that your girls will be attending. So all a parent has to do is click on that link, and they can get it from your email or however you share your link, and click on it, and automatically they are taken to the meeting. There is no special software for the family to download or anything like that. Another reason why I really liked Zoom was that a family doesn't have to have internet connection in order to be able to participate. Zoom does have the feature where the participants can call in and listen to the information. I did have a girl who needed to do that format because she didn't have internet at home. And so I liked that she was still able to be a part of our meeting. There are some considerations you need to think about, because if you're doing a lot of visual information through Zoom and the girl isn't able to see that information, you would need to think about how she will participate in that. But overall, I really liked the features that were available, the fact that families didn't have to download anything, and that it allowed me to do things like sharing my screen, sharing videos and things like that, that I just didn't seem to be able to navigate as easily in some of these other formats. So the first thing, if you already have an account, then I'm sorry to walk you through this again, but I know that it's new for a lot of other people. So I did want to just talk briefly about creating an account and then talking about your settings. So even if you do have an account, you may want to go in and check your settings, especially since Zoom has become more popular in the last month. As more people are finding out about it and using it for work and for meetings like Girl Scouts, there are things like Zoom bombing that are occurring. It's a term that I hadn't heard of a month ago, but it's basically when other people take over your meeting. So we'll walk you through some of those steps too. So the first thing that you're going to do is create an account, and it is something that you are able to get for free. I have the website there, so it's zoom.us/sign-in. And even if you just Googled how to set up a Zoom account, it'll take you to that website. So one thing to know about a free account is that it does limit you to only 40 minutes for a session. And when I did this with my Girl Scouts a year ago, I did use a free account, even though I have an account for work. And what we found was that when we had near the end of our 40 minutes, I got a warning as a facilitator saying that my 40 minutes was almost up. And then just a few minutes before the end of that 40 minutes was up, I got another announcement that said something like, congratulations, or we've decided to extend your session, and it didn't kick me out. Now, that was more than a year ago. I've been following several different Facebook groups online, and some co-leaders have talked about that Zoom allowed them to keep going beyond the 40 minutes, and others who've commented that after 40 minutes, they get kicked off, and then the girls and the leader just log right back into that same exact link, and it starts the meeting all over for them, and that 40 minutes starts again. So some things that you could do if you do get kicked off, like first of all, warn your girls and the families right away that, you know, I'm using a free account, so it might limit me to only 40 minutes. So we will plan to take a break. Maybe you decide that at the halfway mark, you're going to just take a scheduled break. You log out and then everybody logs back in 5 minutes, or you just wait and see. And if it kicks you off, then that's the time that girls can go quickly run to the bathroom, go get a drink, whatever it is that they need to do, right, in those 5 minutes, and then log back in and finish up your meeting. The other thing to know about the free account is that it does limit you to only 100 people signed in at a time. For most of our troop meetings, even a service unit meeting or a meeting that's a very large troop, the 100-person capacity should be more than enough to meet your needs. But it is something to be aware of in case you decide to use Zoom to do something else. So once you are onto that first page, I just wanted to give you the quick what your visual should look like when you get to the Zoom to sign in. There is just a button in your upper right-hand corner that says sign up, it's free. And really it is pretty simple. They'll ask you your birthday just to make sure that you are over the age of 18, because it is a requirement that you need to be at least 18 years of age to have an account. So keep that in mind. Your girls should not be creating their own Zoom accounts. If they do have access to Zoom through school, like I know my daughter through Lincoln Public Schools has an account, she is not to use that school account for outside things. So just remember that there are some limitations with that. And the families do not need to create a Zoom account in order to use it, but you as a host will. So you're going to include your birthday year and then your email address to create that. And then when you come back to this website later on, that's how you can sign in, and it'll ask you to sign in using any of those formats. They do have links with Google and Facebook to make your sign in much easier. So if you do have either of those, you might want to consider using that for creating your account. So the next thing, this is the important thing, even if you already have a Zoom account that we want you to go in and double check things like your settings. This is going to ensure that only those people who you want to attend will be getting into your meetings. And it's also where you're going to be able to turn off and on features such as the chat feature. And we'll talk about the chat just a little bit more in a moment. I know that this screen is really small, but basically I wanted you to see that there are some settings for once you are scheduling your meeting and setting things up. So some things that I want you to consider are to make sure to turn your video off as the host and for the guest as they're joining the meeting. The reason for this is that oftentimes as you begin to start your meeting, people don't even realize they're on camera yet. Their family might not realize that they have joined, and you don't want something happening in the background that people aren't expecting. So it's just a courtesy to others that you would have that video turned off as they are joining on. They do have the option later on to click in the lower screen panels to turn their videos on. Also, click the box that says to allow for audio for phone and computers. This is what allows girls who are unable to join you online to still join you by phone. So you want to make sure that that box is turned on to that. The next feature says disable join before host, and I do encourage that. There's a reason why I'm encouraging that, and that is because once you provide that link starts to work for anybody who has a copy of that link. So even though you might have scheduled your meeting for Tuesday evening at 7 o'clock, girls can get on to that meeting at any point in time if you don't disable this. So they could hop on a Saturday afternoon and they can actually be collaborating with one another, which we would not want to encourage. So by using that disable join before host, you're making sure that the girls, their families, and other people don't get into your meeting before you are ready for the meeting to start. Another feature is to use a password to secure your meeting. Now, Zoom has been adding lots of features and updating, especially now that the use of Zoom is a little bit more common. And so almost by default now, I think that it automatically sets a password as you are creating your meetings. But you do want to create the password for your meetings. This is to ensure that people who are not a part of your troop don't just get a link and come into your meeting. And I'll show you a screen in a moment that talks about the password and setting that up. And then the other thing, just like the video, you don't want people on camera before they're ready and before they realize it. You also want to just click on the one that says select or to mute participants upon entry as well. I can't tell you the number of times where I've watched a Zoom meeting starting and even parents who are right there, I don't know, are we doing it correctly? And stuff like that. So just turn that one off, and as people are ready, they can unmute themselves. All right, so I said, you absolutely want to be in control in your meetings. You don't want participants to take over your session. And so this screenshot that I have here is something that actually happened. My daughter was in a virtual learning opportunity just recently. And when they shared the screen, somehow the girls knew how to use some of the tools and got online, and they just started coloring all over the screen. And it isn't unique to Girl Scouts. I saw something similar with a 4-H session, or really anywhere that the kids have been a participant recently. They just are curious and they want to get in. Sometimes it's innocent. Sometimes they are really just trying to take over your meeting. So we want to use these controls so that they are not taking over the meeting. So yeah, so here are some of the things that you would do. This is still before you've actually even started a meeting. This is before you've sent an invitation out to families. This is still part of that setting up your meeting and securing your account. So some things that we want to do is when we get into this screen sharing, you will go ahead and keep that one turned on, because you are going to want to share your screen probably at some point during your meetings, whether that's to show a YouTube video, or maybe you created a cute little PowerPoint and you're just using that to help guide your meeting along. You want to be able to share, so keep that one turned on. But when it says who is it going to be, put host only. There's an option once you actually start the meeting that you can change that feature if you need to, but for the most part, just keep it on it's just you having access to that. So you will want to disable the things that say annotation, whiteboard, and remote control. Those are the things that the girls would then, like I said, either intentionally or unintentionally take over your meeting. And so just turn those off so that they can't use them by mistake. Now we come up to chat features. So when you are in a Zoom session, you'll have a toolbar on the bottom that lets you see things like sharing your screen or asking a poll or things like that. And there is a button for chat. Now, as you are setting it up, this is what you will see. And one of them asks about allowing meeting participants to send a message visible to all participants. Now, I've normally kept that on. That allows for my girls to put in a question, or if I ask a question like, tell me something you did this weekend, all the girls can type their responses and submit it to me. When I'm working with my older girls, that's a really nice option. My younger girls aren't very proficient typers. It's actually faster for me to unmute one at a time and let them tell me than to try to have, you know, second and third grade girls typing their responses to me. But what I found is that it can be very, very distracting to have the chat feature. I have a little screenshot here on the bottom, and what you can see is that this was a large group. Again, that was one of the opportunities my older daughter participated in. And one question was asked of the moderator, and if you can imagine 93 girls answering back, it became very difficult to read all of the answers, and really the answers didn't always pertain to all the girls. It was to try to help the host a little bit more. It became very distracting, very hard to read it, and I know you're not going to have 93 girls in your troop meeting, but it can become distracting. So you might want to consider turning that one just off. It will still allow the girls to type a response that comes directly to you or your co-leader if you put her as a co-host or him as a co-host, but it'll limit like what they see with one another. And that private chat one, that is another one that you're going to want to consider whether you want to keep that one turned on or off during the meeting. Like I said, my brownies really don't even know that those features are there. They don't really use them as far as I know. But what I did find with my cadets is that they were aware of the private chat, and they can send a message to just one other girl in the room. And it became very distracting. They were kind of having their own meeting on the side while I was trying to lead the main meeting. So I turned that feature off, and I knew that it wasn't working for them when I got a private message sent to me saying, hey, my chat box isn't working. And I wrote back, yes, it is. And then later follow up, it was about the fact that they couldn't send private messages to one another. So you're going to choose whether you want that feature on or off. I really do think for the most part, that's going to be your personal preference, what you're trying to accomplish. If you're going to be asking a lot of questions that you want them to answer back without necessarily unmuting, then you might keep that feature on. But I just wanted to give you that warning from having experienced it myself. Okay, so you've set up all your features in your account as you've either created your account or you've gone in and you've updated your account. Now let's talk about scheduling a meeting. So it's really easy. If you're more familiar with Zoom, there is another way to schedule a meeting right from your main Zoom screen. But I just want to talk through people who are brand new, just keep them going to that same Zoom website. So the same one where you created your account, that zoom.us, then it's /meeting. And there's two different options right on the top. You can pick schedule a meeting, or right near the main stuff by your personal and your meetings and your settings, there's another one that says schedule a meeting. So you're just going to click on that, and then you will start entering in your information. So one thing that I wanted to give you guys as a tip is that when you're creating it, you can put your topic. I put my troop numbers just so I know which troop it is and things like that. You can call it whatever you want to do. But there is a nice little feature that says reoccurring meeting. I really like that feature because then it gives me the same meeting code for every single time that I meet with my girls. This, I think, is a really nice feature because as a parent, we are getting bombarded with a ton of emails from the schools about things that are happening, and I think it's just a little bit easier to keep the same meeting room for families so they don't have to go through their emails each week and find out, oh, what is the meeting code this week? Now, one other option that it's going to have for you when you set the meeting ID is to either generate it automatically or use a personal meeting ID. That personal meeting ID is assigned to you, and it is your specific room. Think about it as like the address of your house or like other personal information that you might not want others to have. We really, or I would really discourage you from using your personal meeting ID. That's just through a lot of the stuff that I've done through work that they've told us not to be using that. It's not something that you just readily share like through emails and stuff like that. Pick that generate automatically one. That'll keep you the most secure because it'll just generate something that's unique for that meeting. But by having that reoccurring meeting, it'll keep that same one for you every single time. The password on here, you will most likely find that that box is already checked for the meeting password. To require it, keep it checked. It's not that difficult for families to type in the password once they get into the screen. Now, they will give you a generic password for it. You can also go in and customize that. So maybe you want to put in a specific word that's easy to remember for your families or something like that. But at least having that will help you, again, with keeping your meeting secure. Once more, as you schedule the meeting, just double check your video and audio settings, just in case for some reason you want them different than your general settings in your account. Then when you, actually I should go back. So when you hit save at the bottom of the screen for when you are creating your meeting, it will take you to the next one to share the link with families as well. And you will just copy the URL that it gives to you and the meeting ID number and send the password separately to them, or don't copy that whole URL invitation. What I found is like you're kind of undoing the whole reason for having a password, because if anybody has that link, they can just get into your meeting as well. So if you have a Facebook group or something like that, again, they don't want you posting those things publicly. That's how people have been Zoom bombed. So think about sending it in a separate email, the password versus the meeting link. So now you have set up your account, you have scheduled your first meeting, and I want you to just think about a couple things before you actually have that very first meeting. So the first one is collaborate with families. Talk about what are your expectations for your family members in terms of their participation during the meeting. So think about the safety guidelines that we have through Girl Scouts. Zoom does not allow anyone under the age of 18 to create a Zoom account. So technically, even to be using it, the girls should be with their families. But what does that mean? Does that mean a family member is sitting right next to them and helping them navigate it? Or does it mean mom is in the same room and she's just sitting off camera because she doesn't want to be seen on that? So talk with your families about what you expect for their participation and things like that. You also want families to have an opportunity to practice using the features. It might be new for them and they're not quite sure how to use Zoom. So having a first meeting with parents is kind of nice to do. And then make sure that you are sharing with them that they have other options for joining, such as using the phone call method if they are unable to join through the internet. Then when you are planning your meetings for actually meeting with the girls, just think about what activities you want to work on. Do you want to just do a couple of the activities for the Girls at Home Challenge? Do you maybe want to go back and revisit some of the Facebook Live events that have happened? There are some really fun ones that our council has put on. And if you are already logged on and you do a screen share, you could easily show like the Lakeview property when they were walking through and checking out that property. It's a camp my girls haven't been to, and maybe they would get excited about visiting that camp then in the future. Or maybe you want to do one of the sing-alongs with B or any of the numerous programs. There's so many that have been released. So think about what activities you want to do. Do you want to work on an award like the safety awards, which actually are very easy to do from home, or maybe a badge? Some badges lend themselves easier to doing at home than others do. So just think about what activities you are going to want to do. And then think about stuff like, are there any supplies that the girls are going to need? If so, you want to make sure to let your families know in advance. I know as a troop leader, I am guilty of having a meeting on Tuesday night, and on Monday evening or even Tuesday, I'm like, hey, if anybody has paintbrushes to bring with them tonight, I'd really appreciate it, right? And I'm sending out that text, and thankfully I always have at least one person who can bring those items and rescue me at the last minute. But our families don't have that same thing right now. And so if they have any special items they're going to need for that meeting, think about if it's something that you could find in the home, or if it's something that's very specialized, how you're going to get those materials to your girls. Think about the time that families would need to actually go get it, and finances might be an issue for your families. So really consider what you can be doing from home. There's just so many opportunities out there that don't cost you extra money right now. So just take those things into consideration. The other thing is, by using Zoom, you really are having a visual connection with your girls. And so they love it. They love seeing each other. So keep your cameras on. Even for you as the adult, they want to see you. So if you are having that bad hair day, put your hat on or something. They want to see you. They don't care. They are just so excited to see one another. So keep those cameras on so that they can see each other. And then think through any videos that you might be wanting to share with your girls as you are collaborating and having your meeting and stuff like that. Know that girls aren't going to just want to sit and listen, which I know is really hard because I'm really having you guys do a lot of sit and listen on this Facebook Live today. But think about ways that you can also have them participate visually. For your first meeting, consider, like I said, the meeting with the parents first so they can use the tools. But you also need to go over, like this is the very first meeting with your girls for the year. Go over expectations for online meetings, such as the need to stay focused, the not having side chatter. What kind of things do you want the girls being able to do during the meetings, and what things should they not be doing? Remember, for that first meeting, less is more. They really just want a time to reconnect with one another and be prepared. They are all going to show off their pets. They're going to want to show you their bedrooms. They're going to want to show you stuff because they are just longing to have that connection with one another again. So don't even plan a lot of activities during those first meetings. We remembered to keep our traditions in there. So our meetings always start with saying the law and the promise. And then they have a quick, each girl gets to share. We go through our meeting, and then we have our tradition at the end of the friendship circle. We just modified it since obviously we can't hold hands and squeeze. What we do is I look at the pictures and I read across from left to right, and the girls do a virtual high five to one another. So, I call off Stefania, Ella Jean, Avery, go through the whole thing until it comes back to Stefania. And then Stefania would say, "Good night, Girl Scouts." And they would all leave. And that's what my troop chose to do for their goodnight circle. And that is how they've done it now for a couple of our meetings. So find new traditions that you can do during this time. One thing that I do see leaders posting about as they have been using Zoom is that they're saying, hey, things went really well until I went to share my screen. So then it's usually related to videos. So you can see the tools on the bottom that you can use when you are running your meetings. And so there is a button down there that says share screen. So you'll want to do that. And then find what you are trying to share. So right now I wanted to share with you guys this PowerPoint. So I made sure to click on the PowerPoint for you guys. And then the really important step here is that there are two buttons on the very bottom of that. And one says share computer sound and the other says optimize screen share for video clips. Make sure you have clicked both of those. That is what's going to allow participants to hear whatever it is that you are watching on your computer screen. And then you would hit the share button. So that really is the way that we fix the ability for people to be able to hear us. And then if somebody is telling you, I can't hear, just remind them to check their volume. But if they heard you before you started the screen share, they should still hear you now. So there are some more advanced features like breakout rooms and polls and things like that. And I would love to share more with that with you, but it really does take active participation for us to do that. I really can't share all that with you through the Facebook Live pre-recorded session. So if you want more help, Zoom has a lot of videos. All the information that I shared with you is current as of today, which is Monday, April 13th. This isn't going to air until later. I just have to get it to the council in time for them to upload it. the thing is, the features do change not quite a bit, but they have been changing frequently for Zoom. I know that I had done an update on my Zoom and a colleague didn't. And on Thursday when we were collaborating, we had a very different experience on our Zooms, and it was because of some of the updates. So the features I'm showing should still work for you, but it could change. And then we have our Girl Scout Facebook site, the Spirit of Nebraska one. A lot of the regions have one, like I'm a part of the Girl Scout leaders in the Southeast Nebraska. So just post the question. I'm sure there's at least another leader or two out there who are familiar with this who can help answer questions. So just ask. We're more than happy to help you along the way. And then I will be setting up a practice session with Zoom so that you can get online and practice all of this without having the girls be a part of the meeting. And so I would love to have you join me. Again, to keep it secure, I don't want to post the link for registering for that right on this Zoom session or on our Facebook Live. So we will share that information with you so that you would register. So I did have that as a feature that you will register to attend that session on April 23rd. So I know how many people, I can do some follow-up, things like that. But when you do a normal meeting with your girls, you don't do a registration. It's just a feature that I'm going to be doing so that I can do the follow-up on April 23rd. So during that time, I can answer any questions, even if it's some of the same stuff that we talked about today in the Zoom, or if it's something more in depth, like how do I use a breakout room? How can I use some polls? Because a breakout room would be a great opportunity, just like you would have your girls separate into groups and work on separate things during the meeting. You can do the same with a breakout room. But unless you play with those features, it just doesn't mean the same. So thank you so much to the Spirit of Nebraska Girl Scouts for allowing me to help host this session today so that I could help walk you through Zoom and hopefully make it less intimidating for you. I can tell you my girls have absolutely loved being able to keep that activity going. And even if they're not the most perfect meetings, they just love seeing each other. So if there's anything else that I can do to help you guys, don't hesitate. And thanks again.